Hello, everyone. We're just getting ready to get set up, so feel free to get nestled and all comfortable because we're going to be doing a lot of catch up. We've missed, is it 2 or 3 weeks?
I think 2 weeks.
I think it's 2, because you guys ran one, and then we had issues trying to get it again or get it working again. The next 2 weeks, yeah. So it's been 3 for me. It's been 2 for you guys. There you go. Okay. I'm just gonna say tonight might be a little light, just because of the fact that not a whole lot of news to cover that hasn't already been covered. But since we haven't been here the last couple of weeks, we're gonna cover it. But also because we love you guys. Can you tell? I'm whispering to you. Okay.
Not to mention, New Year's have been really slow news-wise. I haven't seen a lot.
This is around the time that things slow down.
Yeah, not been too much.
I actually have considered where some podcasts go on a season hiatus kind of thing, like they go on a seasonal basis.
Mm-hmm.
Depending, it depends on where they're based and all that, but or what they're covering. But I have considered, like, if we were to do a hiatus or something like that, it would be in between, like pretty much all the way in from August till about mid-October. Just because that's when things start to pick up for the holidays. But you could also make the argument that we should technically take one, because the other slow part is late winter, early spring. This is why if we can't cover a full 2 hours, then I'm not necessarily crying in my sleep over it. So welcome, everybody, and for the few people that have been reaching out to me, thank you so much for all the well wishes, because that was awesome to have. While I took a forced, or not a, I want to say forced because I'm not usually the guy to do it, but yeah, I was on a forced vacation to try and recover from all of the stress that I had built up over months, even years, just to take a solid break. So I appreciated all the well wishes, even though some gave me a little harsh criticism. I'll take that too. But it's good to be back, and thanks so much to Alex, Romney, and to Brinton for running the podcast 3 weeks ago, when I basically kind of dropped it on them that, yeah, I kind of needed to do this. So thank you so much for stepping up, and yeah, we're going to get started shortly with a number of pieces of news. But while we're waiting on Romney to get here, let me go ahead and cover some other news that didn't make the agenda today and still got recommended by you guys. Even if it didn't get covered by you guys, or if it didn't get brought to my attention by you guys, we'll cover it. This one I haven't gotten anything for, but I want to talk about it, and that is Secret of Mana. Secret of Mana is coming to PC and PS4, and I believe it's getting a full-on remake, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not
PC, PS4, and Vita. You will know. You will know, sir. You will. Because guess what? Because I will make the argument. I've already been making the argument for the 16-bit version. If it gets remade, we're doing it, and it's going to be on the RPG thing, on the RPG day, and it's you can actually play multiplayer. It's an RPG where you can play multiplayer.
Oh, interesting.
And it's three characters, so we might even get Andrea in on that if we can make it work. So I'm excited. I'm absolutely excited. I didn't think you would have too much thought on it, even though it's Square Enix, and I believe this thing came out a couple of months before, about a year before Chrono Trigger hit. So this was an amazing. In fact, I think around the time Chrono Trigger came out was when the sequel Secret of Evermore came out, which is a lot weirder and one player.
1993, so
Mm-hmm.
2 years, I think, before Chrono Trigger.
Yep.
Because Trigger was 95?
Super Nintendo was just a great console for RPGs. It really was, especially for Squaresoft. Man, that was their heyday. Let's see. Other stuff we need to talk about. Apparently, there's a fanfic from a Half-Life writer on Half-Life 3. No, I have not read it. I don't think Alex has either. But
No.
apparently it's got credibility because it's from a Half-Life writer.
Oh, cool.
So I don't remember the name. Actually, let me see if I can get it for you. X-Valve writer Mark Laidlaw. So there you go. Oh, the other one that isn't going to get brought up today was the... Oh, it's not PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, but somebody tried to do a mock-up of that, and it's like Unknown Survival or something like that. And the guy is a YouTuber by the name of Jakey EXE, and people wanted us to cover that because he actually somebody reviewed on YouTube his game. I think the channel was Road 65. He reviewed it and got a DMCA from Jakey EXE. We're not surprised by this. He got a DMCA takedown for his review. When reached out for comment, he basically was telling people at Gamescom that he didn't take it down for copyright stuff or because he was saying or he was giving him criticism. He did it because there was a 2-minute portion of the video which showed not the game itself. I think it was like the Steam page, and he felt that was unnecessary and he was trying to find fault, so he took the DMC. I don't know all the details, but obviously this guy is a douche nozzle of the highest extent, and I'm not taking his bullcrap. So there you go. That just barely came in today. So great when Drac is back at work, huh?
Yes.
The concept of a Joker origin story coming to film.
Yeah, I just heard about this. I don't care.
I'm
I
not
don't
watching
need
it.
Yeah, I'm not
I don't
seeing
need
it.
it.
I don't need it either. I don't. I'm like, well,
I know
it's like
people want this answered. I know people want the answer, but the fact that we have never gotten an answer is what makes the Joker so cool to me.
Yeah.
Like, he just continues to tell you guys stories, like in Dark Knight, where he tells multiple stories about how he got the scars. That's how I see the Joker. I don't need an origin story. I never will need an origin story for the Joker. So I'm not seeing it. If it comes out, I won't see it. If it comes out, we're not vlogging it. Well, you can vlog it. I don't care, but I'm not going.
I don't want to see it either. I'm sick of Joker as much as probably everybody else. It's like two characters I don't need to see for a while now is Wolverine and Joker. I'm tired of them.
Well, it gets worse because I think it's either the Joker origin story or they're going to do a I can't remember if this is going to be an animated movie or a comic, but they're going to do an origin for the Jared Leto, Margot Robbie, Joker, Harley.
I've heard that too. I've heard that as a movie idea that they're working on.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that either. I'm not interested.
Yeah,
I saw more than my fair share in Suicide Squad, and I'm not interested in anything past that point. So sorry, guys. Let's see. Other stuff that we need to get into. I haven't checked this in a while, so I need to make sure that I'm not covering something you guys already covered. Oh, the live action DC series has its Raven and Starfire. So cool. I tried to look up the actresses and I don't know them from anything. So good work on that. But I'm glad that we have a Raven and a Starfire. Because I am interested in a live action Titans. I'm okay with it. I think that's it. I just want to double check here. Oh yeah, then of course all the Blizzard fans wrote out to me going, "What do you think of all the big announcements at Gamescom? We got a Overwatch short. Apparently, we got an animated short for Hearthstone. I've seen none of it. The only news that I've actually seen has been World of Warcraft patch 7.3. So I will watch that as soon as I get a second. I've been clambering because now I'm back from vacation and I have to catch up on so much bullcrap, and then my power supply died. It's like, oh, you wanted to catch up? Well, too bad.
Them's the breaks, right?
The breaks, yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, Alex, you knew this was going to happen. This is like my luck. Take a vacation and then crap hits the fan.
Just like how many times have we had to re-record our Zelda parts now because we kept having audio problems?
Well, and thankfully, those aren't the issue. Like our audio, we've been getting feedback and people like the new audio.
Yeah.
We got the obvious feedback that we thought we were going to get, but we've since fixed it. So yeah, it's fine.
I figured we're gonna have to just throw it out there and see what happens. And I'm glad it's turning out okay. I'm glad we know what to do with our new mics, new sound, not mics, I guess, just our new sound system all set up. I like the way it sounds, really.
The mics. We changed we went to a more professional soundboard / preamp. So,
and I like the way it sounds, really. Now I don't have to be so quiet all the time.
Well, what's even better is you don't have to take that mic and just go.
I don't have to swallow the mic anymore.
So, I think we freaked out Romney. He's like, what on earth?
Believe me, I've come in on much worse conversations.
Yeah, yes, actually, yes, you have. I can't necessarily deny this. So, and then finally, people wanted thoughts on the new Death Note, which apparently came out on Netflix, I believe, this week, and the Tick Season 1. So Amazon has a Tick series now. I have seen neither of these. I have no intention of seeing Death Note, and I'm up in the air about whether or not I want to see the Tick.
Yeah, I may want to look at Death Note given that I was a fan during the heyday, but again, I was one of those people, and I guess it's not really a spoiler because people know what happens, plus the manga is a good 20 years old now.
Yeah.
But I was in the camp that as soon as L died, I was one of those that just went, nope.
Willem Dafoe is Ryuk, but no, I've already decided I'm not seeing it. I'm not interested.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the anime at this point, so I don't see why I would jump to the Netflix live action series.
Yeah, for me, as someone who liked the Japanese live-action films, I may give it a chance, because of all the anime films that I've seen that even Japan has done, Death Note had the better translation, because I understand, because people have been asking me about the live-action JoJo film, and it's a case of people are expecting me to be excited, but honestly, I have concerns about the live-action JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't think it looks that good.
Somebody actually did reach out to me. Do you have, I guess there's talk of a dub from Funimation on JoJo. Did you have concerns with that?
Are you meaning of the anime or the live action?
Anime.
The anime already has a dub. It's being dubbed by Bang Zoom, and it's being released by Viz.
Okay, because I guess somebody wanted to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, because it's not Funimation, it's Bang Zoom Entertainment. They've been dubbing the anime when it started prior to it airing on Toonami, and that's the dub we've been seeing is the Bang Zoom dub. Crunchyroll debuted the first 2 episodes dubbed of Stardust Crusaders a couple of years ago at Anime Expo, so it's not Funimation. I mean, people want it to be, but it isn't. And I've seen parts of parts 1 and 2 dubbed. Some voices, like Speedwagon, they get right. But Johnny Young Bosch as Jonathan Joestar, yeah. Speedwagon.
Hey. No, don't be making fun about him. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
Well, let me put it this way. He's a good voice actor, but accents are not his friend. And he tries, he really does, and Jonathan Joestar is a boring character, but it was just one of those, oh, Johnny, you're trying so hard, but you have to know this was not a good idea. I mean, Dio, yeah, because Dio, they got spot on. Speedwagon, they got spot on. But Jonathan Joestar, kind of meh. I mean, again, Jonathan Joestar as a character is not very interesting, but hearing Johnny Young Bosch trying to do a British accent,
I mean, I like him as
Yeah.
Ichigo, and I've seen the Blu-ray special edition of Akira, and I believe he plays Kaneda, and I've had debates on like who was better, the original guy or Johnny Young Bosch. I'm indifferent. Both were okay. But after that point, I have not seen too many dubs with Johnny Young Bosch in it. And I actually wondered if he was after Bleach, he was just kind of done.
Nah, he still does he does a lot of video game work. I know he's the voice of Yukimura Sanada in the English dub of both the anime and the games of Sengoku Basara. And then there's also the video game voices like Nero from Devil May Cry 4, which is something people kind of like to make fun of because you have the two characters in Sengoku Basara, Masamune Date and Yukimura Sanada, that are kind of pit together as rivals. Bosch voices Yukimura Sanada, and Masamune Date is voiced by Ruben Langdon, the voice of Dante. Yes. And even Capcom is aware of the coincidence when they did their Sengoku Basara cross Devil May Cry stage play. They made fun of the similarities because apparently even in Japan, the voice actors are the same between Masamune Date and Dante. That's
funny. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get things started because we are past start time. So let me know when you guys are ready to go.
Sound speed.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Trying to keep myself on point here because we've been on vacation for far too long. All right. Maybe it'll help if I do that. Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to the... Let me try that again. Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek for Friday night, August 25th, 2017. We're back after a couple of weeks vacation. 3 weeks ago, my buddy Stephen Romney was hosting the podcast, and once again, thank you so much for doing that, as well as Alex and Brenton for hosting for it. But then we took kind of a hiatus, and it was simply because we couldn't get 3 people since I was off on vacation and all of our other people were off doing other things. So we're back. We're ready to go. We hope everybody's had a good couple of weeks. I'm back from vacation, and thank you all so much for the well wishes that you guys sent out to me. I really did appreciate it. But I'm not going to sit here and schmutz like I am right now. Let's go ahead and get things started in the podcast. First of all, welcome to any new listeners, and also this is the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek with myself, as well as my panel of fellow YouTubers, fellow geeks, fellow awesome guys in general. And we'll start things up with Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, of Romney's Reviews. Romney, first of all, thanks for hosting 3 weeks ago, and how has it been, man? It's been a couple of weeks.
Indeed, it's been a trying couple of weeks. I don't want to go into too much detail. It's been one of those... For the case of my mental health, a lot of those ups and downs. On the up, I've lost 17 pounds, so there's that.
Yay!
My diet and weight loss plan has been going well, which I will elaborate as part of this week's Romney's recommendations, which actually I've been saving for 2 weeks, so there's that. And then there's also me finally putting the finishing touches on a little side project. All the other panelists of Geek News have been involved with it. It's now getting to the point where I'm actually going to be able to show it, and people will learn what it is called after so long, and after being kept in the dark, and after me being dormant for a good few weeks and not uploading any content. So yeah.
We'll finally be freed from our non-existent NDAs.
Yes, and that will be fairly shortly. My goal is to have the first episode of this little project up by next week. But I'll be putting up a little bit of a teaser sometime during this weekend or early next week, so people will kind of get an idea of what it is that we are alluding to so ominously.
Nice. Okay, and then we're also being joined by the Shadow Blazer himself, Alex Short. Alex, how you doing, man? It's been a couple of weeks, and I know that in one particular regard, they've been kind of a painful couple of weeks for you. So how you doing?
I, too, have had a trying couple of weeks. This week was a lot better than last week, for just mostly work-related reasons. But this week went at least a lot better, thankfully, a little more smoothly. And unfortunately, because I don't own any of the next-gen consoles, I've not been able to play Sonic Mania, or as I like to call it, the hedgehog that won't slow down. And as such, I'm still waiting because they delayed the PC release by a couple of weeks. But on the plus side, as sort of a early birthday present from Drac here, he gave me this behemoth of a this
Yes.
something that comes with the pre-orders of people who pre-ordered Mania. I didn't pre-order, but hey, this is pretty cool, so I'll take it.
Yeah, so you guys haven't seen the video yet, but we actually do have a Drac Tries of Sonic Mania where me and the Shadow Blazer teamed up to cover the release of Sonic Mania, and then we also did give him that on camera. So you guys will get that in the next little bit. The reason you don't have it right now is literally as soon as I came back from vacation, my PC died. And it's like, oh, okay. So now I got to go fix this part, which means I'm behind again. So, but now I feel bad. Like I'm kind of the douche nozzle here. I'm fine. I'm like, yeah, I'm back from vacation. I'm feeling good. And you guys are like, everything is dark and dismal, and I hate everyone. Like,
yeah. Although I do have to say this though, the hedgehog that won't slow down. That just sounds like a name you would give like an artsy children's book based on Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm trying to think where do we get it?
I made the joke on one of our Dragon Shadow recordings, but the idea of it came from Homer's referring to the movie Speed as the bus that couldn't slow down.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I'm just thinking, like, it either needs to be like a artistic avant-garde painting based on Sonic the Hedgehog, or just a very pretentious children's book written by some sort of literary grad student who can't get a job at Barnes & Noble.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, and so let's go ahead and get into what this podcast is about. And since we've been gone for a couple of weeks, we're actually going to cover some big stories that did happen while we were on vacation, hiatus, whatever you want to call it. I'm calling it vacation because that's what I was on. But yeah, we've actually had a couple of big things happen over that vacation. So we're going to be covering those two, as well as some current stories. But let's go ahead and get things started with an update. So a while back, we covered I'm not saying the guy's last name, but H3H3 and Klein. I'm going to take it from the court transcripts because I'm not saying his name again.
Well, yeah, to kind of make sure, Klein is H3H3, Ethan and Gila Klein. The plaintiff is Haas. Matt Hosenzade, or Matt Haas.
So H3H3 v. Matt Haas. We have a verdict. It's done. And H3H3 has come out victorious. Victorious! Everybody sing the Final Fantasy victory song for him. Victorious. So we're going to do a quick update and say congrats. I wish I could have like actual articles that gave us the transcripts of what they actually said, but a lot of people who heard this initially heard from Leonard French. And then eventually H3H3 put out a video explaining that things were done, and that's actually how I heard. I didn't even see that you put up the Leonard French video, Alex, until I saw the H3H3 video and then saw Leonard French had done one. So I thought maybe like they had just barely gotten out of their court date or whatever and came to report it. So for those who didn't know what the case was actually about, Matt Haas was suing H3H3 for a couple of things. One for copyright infringement, one for character defamation. Yeah, I was going to say character assassination. Maybe that's what he was claiming. But character defamation, and then I can't remember what the third one was.
DMCA, let's see. Looking here. I'm looking at the actual decision here. So the first claim was copyright infringement. The second claim was defamation. The third claim was DMCA misrepresentation.
There we go. Okay. And it's because of a follow-up video that they did where they said that they had received a letter from a lawyer from a lawyer and left it at that. So, yeah, so you had the three counts, and this has been going on for, I want to say a year, at least a year at this point, because we covered it way back when. And the fact that they got a GoFundMe, and I'm trying to remember, did they get French to represent them?
No,
no, French wasn't.
He helped them find local counsel that could help them.
Well, yeah, part of it was that they were working with the video game attorney was his Twitter handle before they had to seek. Basically, the video game attorney had to withdraw as counsel, and so they had to find a different attorney to continue the lawsuit. And so I don't know. I'm looking at the decision here. The Kleins were represented. It doesn't actually say in the decision since it says only the plaintiff and defendant. But I know that they had one of the attorneys was the video game attorney, but then he had to withdraw representation, and so they had to find a different lawyer.
Yep. So this has been a long, drawn-out process, and it actually came to a head when summary judgment was requested. I can't remember by which party that actually did it, but
both parties requested. Matt Haas requested partial summary judgment, whereas the clients requested full summary judgment. And as per that decision, the defendant's motion was granted, while the plaintiff's was denied.
And the defendant was H3 in this case. So Matt Haas. And here's the thing too that a lot of people want to point out. And again, so you have the transcript, so you could probably find these quotes, but because I remember hearing them on the H3 video. The judge had a lot of interesting things to say in regards to Matt Haas. I'm not saying that it was a scathing. I don't think it's as scathing as H3 made it out to be. I really don't, or the clients made it out to be. I really don't, because when you listen to some of that stuff, I sit there and go, this is not as to basically give people a viewpoint. If you haven't seen that video yet, the clients made it sound like a Let's Player going up against a big video game company now has something to be able to shove in their face. And that's not the case here.
No.
In fact, I would actually dare say that reaction videos, I don't really think are going to be as affected as the clients think they're going to be in court. Because even though the judge actually does refer to reaction videos, and the clients make the assumption that the judge tried to make a distinction between good and bad ones. Not really. They just basically explained what a reaction video was. I literally don't see another reaction channel going and using this as evidence. Okay, this is definitely an individual concept.
Plus, the other key thing that people need to remember is that this was in a court in New York. Now, there are certain laws that vary from state to state. Now, if this had escalated to a federal level, that multiple attorneys could apply across state lines, but this specifically is a precedent being set for the state of New York, and a good chunk of it isn't even so much, we're ruling specifically, but rather that the claims filed by the plaintiff have been dismissed, and the Judge Forrest, explaining why she has dismissed each of those claims, going through them one by one and explaining how, under the letter of the law, the claims don't really, basically the plaintiff's claims don't really hold any water.
No, they really don't. And so the summary judgment was done, and since then, the channel H3 has since put the video back up on the channel, which they kept it down while they were going through the court process. Now they're basically enjoying their revelry right now. They're very much happy that they can put the video back up, and they even I think they even said in the video they were going to add ads to it because, well, it's their video and they can do that. But the reason that I want to bring this one up specifically is that we did get a few questions from listeners on how does this affect things? Now, one of them we've actually answered. Like, how does this affect the YouTube landscape and all of the issues that we have to deal with when it comes to DMCAs? This doesn't really affect anything, guys. This is an individual case. It's on a state level. It's like, we haven't really made this clear, and a lot of people have been confused by it. Yes, Alex Maurer is going to court right now. If a decision is reached in that trial, I don't see that trial affecting other trials, so to speak. I don't like it may be referenced, but I don't really think if it got to a federal level, then sure that it'll get referenced. But I don't see this as being, this is our way to stop all those people from abusing the DMCA system. No, guys, that's a YouTube thing. You need to get YouTube to stop doing, or you need to get YouTube to rework that crap.
Yeah. And the key thing to remember is, at least in the case of this specific lawsuit, you have to keep in mind who the defendants and plaintiffs are. So across states lines, this case could be used as a precedent if there was another case of one YouTuber suing another YouTuber. That's the key thing here. This isn't like Lens versus Universal. This is more of a case of one YouTuber suing another YouTuber.
Yeah, this is not a case that's going to set legal precedent. This is a civil case, nothing more. So we pretty much answered that. That's where this goes from here. It's been settled. There's really nothing else to do. But the additional question that a listener did bring up, which I think we can bring up with our technical Leonard French on the panel, does Matt Haas have any recourse after this? Because I don't think he does. I think he's gotten his summary judgment. I don't see that like an appeal process being able to be handled here.
Well, he could try, but
yeah, I think French did say he could theoretically try an appeal, but I think French said he didn't have much to really go on.
Yeah, and that's like, we're talking precedent only. We're not talking finances here. We don't know how much money this actually took out of Matt Haas. So at that point, the other question is, does he even have the capital to be able to get that process going again? And my guess here is, again, I don't know anything about the revenue of either of those channels. I don't think he does. So, but I don't see a whole lot of grounds where he could appeal. I mean, he could have, as you pointed out, he has the option, Alex, but I don't see if he has a whole lot of grounds with which to appeal.
Yeah, especially given how thorough
the judge picked on him, but I don't know if I'd buy that either.
Well, yeah, especially given how thorough the decision is and the fact that it cites specific case examples, it would, like, he could try, but he very much would be the most uphill battle anyone could fight, and honestly, such a proceeding would be quite costly.
Yeah. So I think we're pretty much done. I don't know, was Matt Haas doing anything? I don't think he was active when this whole thing happened. Was he? I don't think it was an active YouTube channel.
No, I don't think so. I recall. Yeah. I think he tried his own Indiegogo to raise his own set of legal funds for his.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. It sucked.
Yeah, and of course it didn't go.
It was clear that his grandmother had paid for it. So yeah, I think this is pretty much done. What does it do for any channel? H3H3 can get back to work. And Matt Haas can go get back to whatever he was doing. He could probably whine about the fact that the judge got on his case, but I don't really see him being able to go the next step up or down another legal path without a huge amount of hurdles in that process. So I guess the only other thing that we can get into is our thoughts on this. Like, do we like the fact that this is happening? Do we dislike it? Alex, what is your thoughts on H3H3 winning this lawsuit?
Well, good for them. I mean, it is a small victory. It's a baby step basically, but it's something at least. But as we said, it's not the gridiron ends all be all to finally protect our rights of fair use. It is one more kind of smaller landmark case. I don't know if landmark's the right word, but it is a small case that it's at least another sort of stepping stone of a little bit of precedent there, a little bit of just sort of something for other attorneys in the future to go off of, and well, and I think it kind of shows that how in the future other content creators can challenge things when other creators want to become abusive like this and try to abuse copyright DMCA privileges into sort of coercing people to remove videos that they find unflattering.
And to basically show that process hasn't changed. I mean, we just barely covered the story that broke. I think it was either today or yesterday. The whole Jakey EXE situation where a channel it's either 65 or 85 did a review of this guy's game, which was basically a ripoff of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And he did a DMCA because the review was negative. So, I mean, obviously it didn't stop that process. People can still do it. But in this case, the matter is just over for H3H3. Because I see that process continuing. This doesn't really change anything. Romney, your thoughts on this lawsuit, good or bad?
I'd say it's good. And like Alex mentioned, it is a small victory that could lead to a larger precedent being set down the line. This hasn't set like something that's going to change copyright law as we know it, but it's small cases like these that it takes people to challenge things based on small cases like these that lead to the much larger decisions. And it very much is an important thing where It shows a precedent of one YouTuber trying to censor criticism levied against them by another YouTuber, even when the criticism is valid. It shows, yeah, that type of thing isn't really going to fly, and you better be ready to pay the piper when things go south. And so it's at least good on that front. The small victory is still a victory, and so we shouldn't ignore that fact. It's just not going to drastically change the legal system. It's just one of those small steps that we take in specifically our legal system that will lead to bigger, better, well, not necessarily better, again, a few Supreme Court decisions notwithstanding, but it's one of those smaller cases that could lead to something larger down the road.
Okay. I didn't want to do this the second that I got back from a vacation, but I'm going to piss people off. Because the second that I saw the H3H3 video, and I went and watched the Leonard French video as well, my thoughts are simply, I'm glad that you won the lawsuit, but if people remember from a year ago, I was not on anybody's side. I thought there was no side in this one to get behind, because both channels had exhibited, in my opinion, a level of douchebaggery that I didn't really care for. So I'm glad that things worked out for you, Kleins, but I'm just kind of glad that this is the final update and I don't have to talk about your craptastic channel anymore. Take that for what you will. I'm not a fan of your channel, and I'm glad that I don't have to talk about it anymore. So what a great way to start off the podcast from vacation. I'm so happy. I'm not being a dork, guys. If you're happy about how or if you're happy about the videos that H3H3 creates, congratulations, good on you. You continue to get them. I'm not interested. I will never subscribe to them. I will never give them a dime of my money in Patreon. It's never happening. I'm just glad I don't have to talk about this damn channel anymore. So with that, moving right along, because that's just a great way to start things off, isn't it? The next thing that we have was content that got announced this week, and we're still getting additional details for it. So, because I've already got 2 of these details, but now I'm hearing about a third, and it's all in regards to Final Fantasy 15. So the first thing that we got is that according to Tetsuya Nomura, keep on forgetting that Nomura is the producer, not the director. Hajime Tabata has actually teased that Final Fantasy 15 content might be being considered for the Nintendo Switch. They didn't go into details here, people, so don't immediately jump the gun here and think you're going to get a 15 version. Like, it's the first ever Final Fantasy game that's come out on Nintendo consoles since 6. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen here. They've already
plus
announced
Crystal Chronicles and the 4 remake would like to have a word with those people.
Yes. I mean, they've already announced that a PC version of 15 is going to happen, and also a smartphone and PC game titled Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. But this is more along the lines of, yeah, we'd probably consider it. And I'm saying, no, you probably won't consider it, because you're going to be off moving to other projects. Because it's great and all that you as the director want to do that. I have a feeling Square Enix is going to intervene. They've got a couple of other games in the pipeline.
Well, to be fair, looking at the quote, it's not necessarily meaning that they want to do Final Fantasy 15 content for the Switch, but rather that the team that worked on 15 wants to develop something for the Switch. So whether it's related to 15 or not, chances are Square's probably not going to let them do something related to 15, but that doesn't mean that they work on something Final Fantasy related specifically for the Switch, then the robust size franchise, even if it is a successor to Crystal Chronicles, or even just a port of something like, off the top of my head, Final Fantasy V or something.
No, in fact, what this actually got me excited for was, I can't remember, I think it was like 6 months ago, I saw an interview with a Square Enix developer who was trying to go into a little bit more detail on Tokyo RPG Factory. So if people don't know what that is, that's basically an indie branch or a retro branch of Square Enix, where they want to do like a bunch of retro RPGs. In particular, the only example that we can go off of is the one that's released, and that's I Am Setsuna. So they wanted to do more games like that. And in the interview, the developer and staff member was actually saying like, yeah, they're in fact, they want to get so much stuff out for Tokyo RPG Factory. They're encouraging developers within to come up with ideas. And then if the idea is good, then they will take that team and maybe move them over to Tokyo RPG Factory to work on that idea that they have. And that's really what I actually looked at this quote and said, that's probably what they're leaning towards. They're not necessarily saying that 15's coming to the Switch, but maybe that they have an idea that's been hatched and that they've gotten approval or are almost ready to get approval for, and they would just move over to Tokyo RPG Factory and do it there instead. I mean, they could easily have another game planned in the Final Fantasy canon, but that's my guess on what's going to happen there. I know Square Enix really wants to get hype and advertisements going for Tokyo RPG Factory.
Yep, and even then, it does, at the same time, Square's got a number of franchises that they would want to promote through the Switch. I mean, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Front Mission. They basically, chances are, it would, even if the team isn't moved to Tokyo RPG.
Like a couple of other ones, Just Cause 3 and Deus Ex are being considered to move over.
Well, yeah, and there have been rumors for years of them wanting to create a Kingdom Hearts game for a Nintendo console, so it could even be a spin-off of Kingdom Hearts.
And a lot of people are assuming, since 3 is actually going to be the first ever Kingdom Hearts game to come out on an Xbox console, they are also planning on a Nintendo launch too. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, because here's the thing, the Switch is new news, and Kingdom Hearts, at least to some extent, has been being worked on since before we knew anything on the Switch. And since in my honest opinion, since even developers knew about the Switch.
Yeah. And honestly, if we were to, when
they approached Square Enix, they were not bringing up the Switch in this level or form. They were saying, we want new stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing to consider is that if we were to get a Kingdom Hearts thing on the Switch, it wouldn't be a main number. It would probably just be yet another spin-off side story thing that makes the plot even more confusing than it needs to be because, well,
yeah,
chain of memories, birth by sleep. I mean, a friend of mine put it best, Kingdom Hearts is basically the JRPG equivalent of Twin Peaks at this point.
Yep. It's only interested in doing various twists. So, Alex, like, where are you standing on this? Do you think that that's what they mean, that they're going to bring 15 over to it, or are you more in line with us of like they have another project in the works that's what they're bringing?
I'm thinking it's going to be more of a different project in the works. I mean, we're already getting IM sets for Switch, so I think that shows Tokyo RPG Factory is definitely
Octopath Traveler and this new one are also coming to the Switch. We know that.
So that already shows Square Enix and its subsidiaries are definitely interested in working on games for Switch. So I think it's a great idea for Square to get a little more product out for the Switch and really help Nintendo diversify the Switch library some more, especially because there still is a following for good old-fashioned JRPGs. So I say absolutely go for it.
Well, and especially considering have you played I Am Setsuna yet, Alex?
No, I have not.
I'm going to gift that to you. There's no reason you shouldn't. If you're in withdrawals right now because of Sonic Mania, I've got a great idea. Let's get you on I Am Setsuna, because that'll scratch your RPG itch. And frankly, given how much work went into that, I actually do like the fact that it's a retro RPG in newer graphics and newer style. And so I do like the idea of what they're actually trying to do here. And before people jump down my throat on the other new one, we don't know its name, guys. We only have a poster. So don't get on my case on that one. We literally don't know what it is. And we've confirmed that the poster is not for Octopath Traveler. So the other piece of news, however, this one is not so motivating, at least to me. In fact, I can already feel reaching out from the ether our buddy Brinton wanting to strangle me, because we're going to be talking about the Assassin's Creed DLC for Final Fantasy 15. I think this pretty much sums up my opinion perfectly.
For the listeners at home, Adam just slammed his face into his palm.
I tried to get it on the mic, but yeah, so there's going to be Assassin's Creed DLC. They've literally set out, what's the name of the town? Lestalem. So the town of Lestalem is actually going to have a complete Assassin's Creed DLC feel to it. You'll be able to take on missions. You'll be able to unlock costumes. In fact, I've seen a few costumes. One of the original Altair outfit that Noctis can wear, and then also of the newest one, the ancient Egyptian one. So,
all right, to kind of explain though, as someone who actually has played 15 and is familiar with how the DLC works, for those of you who played Final Fantasy 15 during the holidays, you may recall.
Not as much as you probably, but I played it.
Yes, and so I'll give the explanation. If you played Final Fantasy 15 during the holidays, you may recall a little festival they had called the Moogle and Chocobo Festival. It wasn't really part of the main game. It was downloaded to your console, and you could basically load it and say, oh, play this festival, and it would take your save file, load it, and you would be in Lestalem, except decked out for the Chocobo and Moogle Festival. And so this DLC seems to be working the same way, where it's an assassin festival, where, much like the Moogle and Chocobo Festival, you'll load it up, because first off, it's free, so, like, yeah, you still get some extra stuff if you bought the season pass, but the base festival and some of the base content is free to download, so that's one plus. And so the idea is, you'll download it, you'll be able to take part in the Assassin's Festival, play a few of the different mini-games to unlock various items and costumes, so on and so forth. And so that's how it seems to be working this time around, is that they're taking that Moogle Chocobo Carnival format, and this time tying it with Assassin's Creed. And my first thought when I saw this story was, I guess this is Ubisoft's business model now. Advertisement through other video games. I mean, it worked well when they did the collab with Metal Gear Solid 4. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of on the opposite side of this here. I mean, Adam's facepalming, but I'm just like, okay, this actually looks kind of cool. I'm actually kind of excited for it, especially given that it's going to be coming out next week.
My problem is that I'm not sure how I feel about Assassin's Creed anymore. I really don't know how I feel. I've gotten into this discussion with Brinton a few times. It's like, I get why people are excited for the ancient Egyptian one, Origins, but I mean, like, I'm kind of a couple of games back, people, and I'm not really impressed with what they've done since. I'm not even gonna say 3. 3 was not all that impressive to me. I'm gonna say 2, or maybe even the final 2 edition, and not Brotherhood, but with older Ezio. Dang it! I can't remember. Is it Revelations?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So that would be like the last one where I was totally gung ho into Assassin's Creed. But 3 didn't kill it, but it was crippled to me after that. And then I've been playing 4 and a little bit of 5, and I'm not there anymore. They took away all the elements that I really cared about. So the fact that 15 is implementing stuff for a game that I don't even know how I feel about anymore, I'm not there. I'm not excited or anything like that. And it's not just Ubisoft that's doing this. I've seen a couple of other games try to do crossover stuff like this, and it's always implemented weird to me, and so it's hard for me to get excited. But Alex, your thoughts on this? Well, you don't really play Final Fantasy 15, but do you think this is a good idea or a bad idea that 15 is essentially advertising Assassin's Creed here?
Seems kind of weird to me, but hey, I guess if it works, it works.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could use the adage of, if it's not broke, don't fix it, but that's something that people are starting to do now, so I don't know how that's going to work in the long run.
Yeah, plus the reason I'm just kind of excited is just because it's just silly enough. I mean, keep in mind, Final Fantasy 15 literally has a product placement for Cup Noodle built into the game. Not even like, oh, just a few billboards. No, there's an actual quest line based around Cup Noodle. Yes. The real Cup Noodle that you could buy from the store. So looking at this, I'm just like, yeah, that it's equally as silly.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and I don't know how I feel about it. But anyway, so yeah, we've had a couple of interesting announcements for Final Fantasy 15. I wouldn't mind if the team worked on a separate product, but this DLC, I'm not even sure if I'd get involved for it. but I mean, I'm still wanting to go through the plot of 15. So if I had a chance to play 15, I'd be going through the plot right now. So that's my viewpoint on the matter. Moving on into the next story, because we actually have a kind of loaded tech portion of the evening, given all of the over a couple of weeks. And the next one is also kind of inflammatory. So people might have heard the announcement that Mass Effect Andromeda has no further single-player DLC planned for the game. They have since moved on. It's obvious that BioWare is moving on to Anthem, and in turn, they've had their executives have had a few interviews here and there. In particular, one I'm trying to remember the name of the executive that was being interviewed here. They may have kept it anonymous, but this particular EA exec is receiving quite a bit of criticism right now for his comments, basically saying that criticism of Mass Effect Andromeda is essentially what killed it. Because of the fact that it got criticism right off the bat that was negative, horrendously negative. Granted, the way I understand it is I didn't see a whole lot of this, but people were saying that the game was horribly broken when it came out. I needed a couple of patches. I'm hearing as of the summer, Andromeda has been okay. Like they've done a lot of the major patch fixes, and now it plays fine. But the damage has essentially been done, and so much so that EA has basically scrapped the Montreal team and moved them to other projects. And there will be no more Mass Effect games. But in particular, this guy actually said, "I usually don't do this." This is his quote. But this is one of those places where I feel the game got criticized a little bit more than it deserved. I think the game is actually a great game. Yes, we have to acknowledge the fact that there were some things that maybe we could have done better. Absolutely. But as a whole, if you go in and you buy the game today with everything that's in it today, I believe that it's a game worth buying personally. Okay? I've heard that too. In fact, I've heard that they've put the game up cheaper now. At least a little bit cheaper, and that's made it a little bit more worthwhile to people. But I guess my first reaction would be, don't release a broken game. I know that EA was breathing down your throat, but you could have literally looked them in the eye and said, "Hey, you remember those other two games or those other three games that we sold and we made a lot of money off of? Here's an idea. We actually had as much time as we needed to be able to get those games out without you guys breathing down our throats. So how about you not breathe down our damn throats?"
To be fair, the expression is breathe down our necks, not breathe down our throats. I mean,
neck, that just puts up breathe down their neck with 3.
Well, yeah, it's just it puts a very weird imagery in people's minds when you say breathing down their throats. I mean, I know EA is very intrusive, but I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't go that far. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is Electronic Arts.
Would they? Ronnie,
well, I mean,
let's be honest. Would they?
Well, I mean, the answer to that is Ultima 9.
Well, this has been a great vacation. Now I need another 4 weeks to get over that one.
All right. And to kind of answer the question, the executive in particular is Patrick Soderlund, who is EA's executive vice president. And he was attending Gamescom, and the interview was initially written and published in the magazine Game Reactor. I'm looking this up as I'm seeing it, but also my speech has been a bit slurred as of late, which is why I keep hesitating. But yes, so it's Patrick Soderlund who has issued these statements. Yeah, so let's actually get into this. Like, do we actually think that the downfall of Mass Effect Andromeda was it seems so weird because we were talking so positively about it a year ago, and then it came out, and now nobody's saying anything nice about it. Do we blame it on the fact that it came out broken and needed tons of months worth of patching, or do we blame it on the fact that the critics blasted it and therefore nobody's going to buy it because they've already seen their favorite critic's opinion of it? I think it's honestly a little bit of both. I honestly think that EA and all of the other companies really need to get behind or drop the concept that it's okay to streamline these games and just get them out there. There's a reason that the companies that don't do this are more successful than you right now, and they have more raw profit coming in from their games.
And you guys haven't learned that lesson. I mean, for crying out loud, it's hurt you in a lot of occasions. Activision's been hurt by it. EA's been hurt by it when they release a broken multiplayer game and it blows up in their face. Dare I say, the original Battlefront was considered broken by a lot of people and was not properly fixed until about, I want to say, like a month or two later. So is it the fact that the game came out broken, or is it the fact that the evil reviewers came out and flambéed it for everybody to see? And I honestly think it's a little bit of both. I think the critics did overreact. I've seen a few of the reviews of Mass Effect Andromeda, and I don't know if I would actually agree with everything that was being said in those critiques, but I mean, this is something that I've complained about for months, even years on the podcast, is that sometimes it is so much easier to review something negatively and to go into it like via AVGN than to actually look at it and look at the positives and be able to say that this is a good game because of these positives. I might be the only one here, but Alex, your thoughts on the matter. Is it primarily that the game came out broken, or is it the critics that killed it?
I don't think the critics have any real blame or responsibility here. The critics are critics at the end of the day. You're to the people who are in charge of making the product. If you can't make a good product, you can't be shocked when people don't review it positively. Just in the few comments in this article that you cited here, most people cite that the bugs were terrible, that the game wasn't polished and wasn't finished. If you're not going to put out a good game, tough. You can't cry when people give you sour reviews. Sorry, people have been critiquing forever, right? And there are products that are quote unquote critic proof. Need only look at the Transformers film franchise, which continues to rake in tons of cash, even though people absolutely revile those films. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Just because people find them, because at the end of the day, people find those entertaining. We can debate about the quality of those movies at the end of the day, but the point is that they're entertaining, and nobody cares that the critics don't think they're good because they find them entertaining. So in the case of this video game, you're not producing a good quality game, and that people aren't finding entertaining, especially a game because it's interactive, and if you can't get through more than 5 minutes without it going all crazy, then yeah, you're not going to be having satisfied customers. Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you're kind of coming down both ways too.
Not really. Like I said, I don't think the critics are at any fault for giving their honest opinions.
No, I don't buy that. Some of those critics are mean just because they can be mean.
If they want to be well, I'm sorry. If they're caustic critics, then there's caustic critics. But at the end of the day, if you're not producing,
some of those caustic critics are heavily popular.
Yeah, but like I said, if you aren't producing a quality product, then it doesn't matter. It's like it's your own damn fault for not producing a quality product.
And I'm not saying I don't agree with you. I really do think that because EA was breathing down their necks to get Andromeda out there, that hurt the product as a whole. If they'd had an extra year, maybe even 2 years to work on this thing, we would have gotten a Mass Effect 2 caliber game. And I think 2 is the one that's the most beloved in the series. You would have gotten a Mass Effect 2 caliber game, but unfortunately, because EA kept pushing, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
And in fact, you're going to get a broken game.
I mean, take this like my own personal experience. I could blame Egoraptor all I want for the decline of Sonic the Hedgehog's popularity. But at the end of the day, it's not Egoraptor's fault that people don't take the franchise seriously anymore. I have to put the blame more on Sega for kind of constantly not putting out quality products. That's at the end of the day, it falls on you, the creator, more so than the critic. The critic is just the critic, like I said. And going back to my Transformers analogy, they make money because people find them entertaining, and the critics rail on them till the cows come home, and people shout, Michael Bay rapes my childhood, but it doesn't matter.
This is being brought up in our live chat too, and I actually want to bring it up because we are talking Mass Effect, but it isn't necessarily just the critics that came out against this thing. I do know that the retake Mass Effect movement came out against Andromeda, and they came out hard. So at that point, I mean, it may not necessarily have been just the critics, but it could have also been all of the retake Mass Effect guys who have, or who are critics, or who do have YouTube channels that immediately just railed on this game and didn't even give it a damn chance.
Not much you could do, because if that subset people have their minds made up, then they have their minds made up.
Well, then I can already tell you that your review is inaccurate because you walked in with a bias, but that's just me.
But of course you walk in with a bias. It's a review.
No, for the review, you need to be walking in objective. I don't know where you learned how to review, but you need to be walking in objective. This is the problem that I have with a lot of critics right now on YouTube and everywhere. You need to be walking in objective.
To be fair, you can go in with a bias if you make it clear to the reader from the outset that, hey, I have this bias going in. If you disclose it and acknowledge it, the reviews tend to come out a bit more objective, where they make it clear up front that they have a bias. I speak from personal experience with certain films that I did have a bias going in. If the ones that try to hide the fact that they have a bias are the problematic reviews, because they try to paint themselves as objective when they're clearly not. Whereas if they openly acknowledge it, then that's a review you can read. It's like, okay, he at least acknowledged, yeah, he's got a bit of a bias, but at least they're upfront about it.
Yeah.
And so you can go into the bias. You just have to make sure that you're honest with your reader or your viewer that you have a bias going in, and that makes things a lot smoother. Plus, even just the act of saying you have a bias and making that clear kind of takes away the bite a little bit, because it's a case of, okay, you've acknowledged it. Now let's actually get into it. And so that's really the key thing. It's not so much people with a bias, but those who try to hide it and pass themselves off as being objective when they're not.
And I would agree with that wholeheartedly, because, you know, when I do my reviews, and guys, I'm not a journalist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't aim to be. My reviews are simply coming from kind of a vlogger's perspective. If I have a bias towards a series, I do let people know in advance. And I do know that Alex has done that with some of his reviews in advance, that he did walk in with this kind of an assessment or this kind of a positive reception already in it. So before people start jumping down my throat, wow, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail right after this as a return. This is going to be great. But that's the thing, is that I agree wholeheartedly with Romney here. If you're going to review this product and you are walking in with a bias, you need to let that be known. And I already know of a few, at least, that did not do that. And it was very clear in their review that they had that bias. Okay? It painfully clear. Another example that I will give is the people who tried to review another game that came out last year objectively, Mighty Number 9. And it was very, like, go and look at some of the reviews of Mighty Number 9. It's very clear to me, and probably to you when you watch them, of the people who paid into the Kickstarter versus the people who didn't. Because they were 10 times more pissy with Mighty Number 9 than even I think it deserved, and I didn't put money into the Kickstarter. I actually reviewed Mighty Number 9 positively, unlike all of the ones that didn't. And it was very clear that they paid into it. In fact, some of them were nice enough to admit that they had paid into it and they were pissed off. So you need to go from that perspective. But to bring things back to the story, I do think that that Patrick Sutherland is in the right a little bit here. I do think that the critics did play a part into this. But the other part that I think needs to be brought up, and that this panel has brought up, is you also released a broken game. It took months to patch to fix all the bugs. This should be, I don't know why this isn't a thing since the podcast has started, but this should be like Video Games 101. You release the game when it's done. You do not make your paying customers your bug testers. If they want to willingly pay into your beta, fine. They know what they're walking into. But the people who are coming on release day to buy a game that they love so much are not coming in to be your bug testers. And that's a thing that has to be considered here. Do I agree with EA's decision to basically gut BioWare and move them to other projects? No, I don't. But it's EA. They can do whatever they want on the matter. And I know that BioWare isn't completely going away. BioWare is still running the Old Republic. It's really just the Montreal team that got gutted and moved over to other projects. And for delivering this game, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So as much as we could say that executive overreaching happened, I'm really starting to think that studios need to stand up to their executive overreachers. I really am. Saying, like, look, do you want a good game or not? And if the executives want to pull the money or cancel the game, well, make it a story and we'll cover it. So any other additional stuff that we want to add to this particular story? I think we pretty much got it.
Pretty much. There's not much else to really say. It very much, I mean, you both have kind of hit the point on the head where, yes, some critics were overly harsh, but at the end of the day, if you want people to buy your product, well, put out a finished product, a quality product, a product that people actually want to buy. And to kind of get into the whole retake Mass Effect thing a little bit, I mean, yeah, a lot of people may think, oh, yeah, well, they can just win a bunch of new players, but, well, franchise loyalty is a big thing. If you're not able to bring back the people who liked the previous games, I mean, that would be like, say, if one of the Legend of Zelda games after Breath of the Wild was strictly a farming simulator with no questing or anything, where literally it was just Harvest Moon, but with the Legend of Zelda name, and that was released as a main installment game. I don't care how loyal you are to the Legend of Zelda, if they did such a drastic change and tried to pass it off as a main title Zelda game, people would be rightfully pissed. I mean, it's a simple fact that if you're making something as part of a larger franchise, you can't bank solely on the new players alone. You need to find some way to bring the diehard fans back. I mean, look at Castlevania and what happened with Lords of Shadow. They lost a good chunk of the old fan base. Granted, it was still moderately successful compared to a lot of other games Konami made, but that was still a bit of a problem.
Yeah, it was. Like, I'm not a retake Mass Effect guy. In fact, when I did my Andromeda review, I actually did get into a discussion with a guy. I want to say the private messages on Twitter or on YouTube, but basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Blasting me because I gave advertisement to Mass Effect Andromeda. And I literally reached out to him and I said, did you sign the retake Mass Effect petition? It's like, yeah, why? This video won't work for you then, because I'm not on your side. I do not think that because you paid $60, you're part of the freaking art team on a game. So I can already tell you, if you didn't like my Andromeda review, you are not going to like anything else that I'm going to do, because I do a lot of the time do not come down with a lot of the mainstream critics. So I do know that exists, and I do know that they were enough of a following to create major problems for Mass Effect and Andromeda, and probably any other future event. I actually am wondering if Anthem is going to be affected by retake, at least to some extent. But yeah, this can have an impact, and the only thing that I could say to dissuade all of that is, first of all, to the retake people, acknowledge your relationship in this whole thing. You paid $60 to play a game. And the second thing is that if you're diehard, you're not going to, I mean, we all have to acknowledge this concept. If you're getting a game that's as big as Mass Effect and it's taking 2 years to develop it, that's probably even a little optimistic. If it takes a year to develop it, you're probably not going to get the result that you want out of that matter. That's a rushed game. And we need to strongly discourage, vote with our dollar, to get these AAA developers to stop this process. And I'm not just targeting EA, people. Activision needs to stop doing it, and Bethesda certainly does. So there you go. Moving on to the next story that we have here, which, speaking of EA, because I think it's theirs too. So how many people were excited at E3 when Middle-earth Shadow of War happened? In fact, I'm actually going to start earlier than that. How many people remember the whole fiasco that happened when review copies, or the whole fiasco involving review copies for Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor? I'm trying to think. Did we cover that on the podcast?
I don't remember us covering
I remember
that.
a month later we covered the Konami boot camp for.
Oh yeah, I remember we did
for Phantom Pain, but I don't think we covered Shadow of Mordor.
Well, yeah, it wasn't something about the review copies, but it was something about Warner Brothers sponsoring certain reviews of the game that kind of not disclosing that.
It was like you would get taken down if you did not. You had to sign an agreement, and then basically you had to submit your video, and anything they disliked, they could take out. So you could basically, this was a contract of you couldn't say anything crappy about the game, and if you did, then they got to DMCA you or take down your video, kind of thing. And the backlash that happened when a bunch of YouTube critics, including Jim Sterling and Angry Joe, didn't sign it and put out their criticisms anyway. So that already happened with Shadow of Mordor. And the sad part is that everybody that I've ever met that played Shadow of Mordor, they loved it. They loved it. They loved the Nemesis system and everything about the game. It was amazing to them. But it was this bad publicity that happened with the developer that killed it. Or not killed it, because it did well. It did well enough for a sequel. But now we have Shadow of War. And man, nobody learned their lesson. So this is coming from a Sid Alpha video, as well as from a source that Sid Alpha actually does cite that went into additional information on this. But there's been a little bit of a controversy regarding the PR guy, or at least the PR web representative of Shadow of War. And I don't know his actual name. I don't think it's actually been disclosed, but it's like Laptop 65 in the forums.
Yeah.
And he basically, if you're not up to speed on this, if you speak negative towards Shadow of War, your thread's not going to last long. It basically has a shelf life of about an hour. Mainly because this guy will shut it down and say, well, I think all the negative criticism is over on these threads and you can continue to do it there. But if you start up a brand new thread, say on Steam or whatever, he'll shut them off. The other problem, too, is that now we're discovering more and more about the guy that is running the PR for Shadow of War. And Romney looks a little confused. Am I not covering this right?
Well, looking at this a lot to this story that it feels like it's very much looking like a case of he said, she said, for lack of a better example. To kind of start from the top, it's specifically a moderator on the Steam forum for Middle-earth Shadow of War. We don't know if this person is working for the game company that actually...
I probably am covering that wrong. That he's a forum moderator. He's not necessarily... We don't know if he's necessarily the PR guy. A lot of people are assuming he's the PR guy.
Yes, and I haven't had a lot of time to look at this particular story since I cut it kind of close coming in tonight. But looking at the basic summary that Sidalpha provided that luckily summarizes the gist of the story, that Laptop 65 is one of the moderators on the Steam forum for Shadow of War. He attempted to bribe a YouTuber by the name of I Am Pattyjack in order to obfuscate his involvement with the website scythe.org, a website that he's also a moderator as well. And then in addition to that, another YouTuber named Dandruff, with the parenthetical news cartridge, discovered that this, and these are the words from Sid Alpha's description, antagonistic and inflammatory forum moderator has been actively defending pedophilia.
Yes.
Now, again, it's very much a case where it's hard to get a gauge of how much is accurate. I mean, even the comments on Sid Alpha's video itself is a veritable nightmare to navigate. So,
well, specifically that these comments came on the site in question, scythe.org, is where these arguments were being made. And yeah, this has created a little bit of an issue. I wouldn't necessarily, I think that a lot of this has been misrepresented. I don't think this has actually fallen too harsh on Shadow of War, more in particular on this guy. And because here's the thing. I don't think the hype train for Shadow of War has been affected by this. I may be wrong on it. I don't have official numbers. I don't think it's been affected because a lot of the mainstream guys that are still excited for this thing are still excited. It's just that this thing came out from this moderator, and now we have this other issue that is playing into Shadow of War, but isn't necessarily connected to it.
Yes, and that's really what it's looking like here, is that this seems to be something that's spilling out of another forum, but I doubt it's going to make much of a dent into Shadow of War. And honestly, just the way the video title itself is portraying it, it seems also a little bit clickbaity, as a lot of people are accusing Sid Alpha of being with this particular video.
Not only him, but the original guy that he cites also has comments like that too. So this was a listener suggested story because this did happen, and they wanted to know our viewpoints on it, specifically the fact that this guy is defending pedophilia. I've seen the statements, and I mean, I wouldn't get in an argument with this guy in any kind of a forum, but and frankly, some of the other things that I've seen him do and that we have this evidence of, like, you know, when he tries to bribe the guy to not put in his affiliation with site.org, well, yeah, I wouldn't associate with this guy either, but that's me. Like, I would have told you from the get-go I wouldn't have associated with this guy for that. Oh, the other thing, too, that people are mad about is the microtransaction fiasco also that's happening. So apparently you can buy gear with money for Shadow of War, and that's disappointing, too. I remember that. It came out on vacation for me, and I'm just like, well, Shadow of War is now Call of Duty. So, I mean, I can't really put more towards that, but I don't think that this story in particular has affected the PR as much as the microtransaction announcement.
Yeah, and looking at this, and again, as someone who hasn't really researched this story, there's not much that I personally can really say. As for the debate and the topic itself, I'm not going to touch this with the 20-foot pole. This is like the content of the discussion regarding pedophilia. This is not the show for that. So
I'm gonna touch it, and I'm gonna touch it in this specific thing. We all live on the internet. Let's not be douches on the internet. Can we all agree on that? Can we just not be douches on the internet?
Yeah. Well, problem is to that, many people would say that. And this is from a comic that I read, but it summarizes the internet perfectly. Opinions are a lot like assholes. Everybody's got one, and they love showing them to strangers on the internet.
I've never heard that, man, but I'm going to use it. That was great. Yes, that's pretty much it. Alex, is there anything you want to interject with this one?
Not really, because this is a proverbial minefield I'd rather not tiptoe into right now. I'm going to
also open things up to the microtransaction thing. If you want to bring that up, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I think microtransactions are complete bullshit, but it's unfortunately your own damn fault if you buy them. So,
well, especially if you're going to buy gear in game with it, yeah, it's just never a good idea.
You know, I get it. I hate grinding as much as probably anybody else, but I'd rather grind than actually have to pay out money for stuff that I should just be able to earn in the game. So
what's sad is, like, I know people that do it, and the amounts of, I'm not going to disclose numbers here, but the amount of money they've spent to get to be like elite, not in this game, but in others, the amount of money they've spent to be like elite dude, just, it staggers me. And I'm a guy who pays into an MMO. Okay. I pay into an MMO, and the amount that they have spent floors me. I can't even believe that they spent that amount of money. And that's my viewpoint on microtransactions. If you can do it in game, why not just do it in game? And I would actually dare say that makes you the elite player if you can do it in game. Did you want to add anything on the microtransaction stuff, Romney?
It's not much. I feel kind of bad that I didn't research this as much as I should have, but it's very much one of those. Alex put it best. This is a minefield that it's very much one of those we have. Sorry, my audio seems to be acting up because of my. But as I was basically saying, sorry, Jeez, Hollywood Reporter, stop blasting your video.
I was wondering what you were talking about with audio stuff. Yeah, this occasionally happens on the podcast, guys. We have to deal with the ad as we go into the story.
Okay, there we go. Yeesh. Sorry about that. But as I was saying, very much it is a minefield that we are not currently equipped to tiptoe into. And given just how obscure this story is, it very much is one of those probably not going to dent Shadow of War in any meaningful way, since this is a forum moderator and not, say, the vice president at WB Games or whoever produces this game.
Yeah, just to respond to the listener that put this up, I agree with Romney here. I think the moderator story is kind of a non-thing. I really, like, let's just say for the sake of argument, WB Games gets involved. Let's just say theoretically. They'll sweep it under the rug so fast it won't affect any of the momentum. So while this I don't think is going to affect the publicity of Shadow of War, the microtransactions thing I think will have more of an impact. So there you go. Moving on into our entertainment section tonight is actually really short because we're still kind of in a slow period for news. But let's go ahead and get into the one thing that people wanted us to talk about for the 2 weeks that we couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and this was the story that was causing audio issues when I was trying to make my final statement.
So Disney has announced that they're going to be pulling their movies from Netflix. Not just Netflix. They've since clarified and said most of the streaming services are going to lose them. So Disney movies are up on Netflix and on Hulu. I think Amazon will still carry them, but that's just because you can pay for it, and therefore they don't have a problem with that. But anywhere where you were getting like ads or anything like that, they're getting pulled in favor of Disney launching their own streaming service. I don't think that it has a name yet, does it?
No, it's not even.
Like people are already assuming it's going to be like HBO Go. It's going to be Disney Go. But I don't think it has a name yet. So before people jump the gun there, it's not named. But yeah, we're basically thinking that this stream service will be the housing receptacle for all things Disney, or at least anything that has or that Disney has under their umbrella. So I have a feeling it's not just going to be restricted to movies. It's also going to be any Disney series or series that's sponsored by Disney, or Disney has the rights to. Now, this concerns me because there's already a few Disney properties on Netflix that I think are going to go away as well. And as a parent, Disney may have screwed the pooch for me. Because if they take away Little Einsteins, I'm dead in the water.
Yeah,
so
the same.
I'm putting it out there, people. If they take away Little Einsteins, I'm dead in the freaking water.
Yeah, the same thing happened to my older brother when they took away Jack Tiger's Neighborhood from Netflix. The same thing happened to him.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that Disney's the one that did it. My kid will blame me. I'm the magic person that can make that work. And if I can't make it work anymore, I deal with the tears, not Disney. So, yeah, this is going to happen. They're going to go to their own streaming service. But frankly, I mean, let's just be honest. I'm kind of surprised it took them this long to launch their own streaming service. I really thought that they would beat WWE, and WWE has a streaming service now.
Well, there were a couple of attempts. There was one that was trying something similar to the Ultraviolet program, where that Sony had set up, where you would buy the DVDs, but then you would be able to use the streaming code for Disney's specific service, where you would got a code when you bought the DVD or Blu-ray, but that didn't really work out. And so this is basically the next attempt at entering the streaming video market. So this isn't the first time. And looking at the Hollywood Reporter article that we're going off of, the key thing that CEO Bob Iger's made clear is that if it's Disney or Pixar branded, it'll probably appear on the new service. But the jury's still out on some of their other properties, namely the Marvel and Star Wars films.
Yes, and also the other big question that's being asked is, how does this affect those other properties? I've already seen a few people ask the question of, okay, how does this affect the Netflix Marvel universe? I don't know. I think they've worked things out specifically that those can stay. Netflix properties. But I don't know. Disney may assert their right and say, well, we own Marvel, and Marvel Studios is the one making them, and we own them. So F you, buddies. We're gonna take our ball and go home.
The other thing to consider is that a lot of these have contracts that are already in place. The article mentions that that Disney still has a contract with Hulu that it's a multi-year deal that has them putting films like Mulan and Pocahontas and other shows on Hulu. And so the other key thing, it's not that they're going to yank them left and right. It's more a case of they have to wait for these contracts to run out or spend a lot of money trying to negotiate those contracts to disappear. And in Disney's case, it wouldn't make a lot of sense given that they also own a stake in Hulu.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I have concerns, but I think that the Disney is going to be wise in this regard. I don't think that they're immediately just going to take everything that's profitable and take it all away. Mainly, I think what they're trying to do is allow more access. I mean, in particular for me, this is helpful because my cable provider doesn't provide Disney XD, and there's a lot of animated series that I would like to try out. I mean, I just barely saw the pilot for the new DuckTales, and it's amazing. I'm also interested in the new Spider-Man series they want to do that's based a little bit off of Homecoming. But again, XD, so I'm not going to be able to see it. So this is probably an awesome thing for me to be able to get access to. And It does actually also make me ask the question of, are you going to dig up old series that you have the rights to, but nobody's syndicating right now? So like, could we see the return of classic Disney Afternoon stuff, classic Jim Henson stuff that you still have the rights to? Would that be showing up in the streaming kind of thing? There's a lot of questions to this process.
Plus, another thing to consider, and this is a hazard that my older brothers encountered, when you look at, while Netflix has at least created a measure to counteract this by creating the Netflix Kids filter, you have a case where if you have people trying to look up Disney content on things like YouTube and other streaming sites, there's the risk that the kid may stumble across something that isn't exactly appropriate, especially given, and Saberspark did a really good video discussing this called The Dark World of YouTube Cartoons, where some people make stuff that's intentionally really messed up because they know a kid is going to stumble across it. And so this is probably Disney's additional attempt at mitigating that of, oh, hey, you trust Disney, we're the family-friendly brand. Here's a dedicated service for people who want the Disney films. And that's probably the angle they would go to market of saying, hey, you want to have a repository of all these classic Disney movies, but don't want to risk your kids stumbling across, I don't know, for the sake of example, The Walking Dead? Here, use this app.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. Kids Mode on Netflix doesn't protect them from everything.
Nope.
I haven't seen The Walking Dead, but I've seen some risky stuff being put in the kids section. So that's already made me worried when my little daughter has access to the remote and knows how to use it. That, and I'm here's the thing, guys. I'm probably paying into this service because if my daughter getting or living without little Einsteins is not something that I can picture right now. And I know a lot of people who are going to bring this up in the comments will just go to Sesame Street. I don't know if I want that either, people.
Plus
I really
it's on
don't
HBO
know.
now.
Well, they're on HBO, but you eventually get the seasons going through PBS.
Yeah, HBO basically just has first run rights. I've had to explain this to many, many people where, no, the show is not going to move to HBO. HBO just has first run rights.
Not only that, but like Sesame Street, this is going to be mean to say, but I honestly think they've dropped in quality since I was a kid. I like a lot of the stuff that they've tried to introduce currently and it could be that I'm an adult and I just don't get it, but it's just not as great quality wise. And I actually do feel like Little Einsteins is an engaging like little property for her to get into.
Yeah, well, to kind of explain the drop in quality, you can thank a little Bush-era law called the No Child Left Behind Act that bent PBS over the table, and so there's that. But to kind of get back on point, that's probably the angle. Like, if I were a marketing executive at Disney, that would be my push, saying, hey, parents, want something that will show Disney stuff to your kids that doesn't have the worry of them stumbling across an R-rated Miramax movie? Here's our special Disney app with all these classic shows, all these classic movies that are age appropriate. I mean, I can see them doing like Disney Channel stuff, putting stuff on there like Famous Jet Jacket or Lizzie McGuire or Hannah Montana as well, given that those shows still draw a sizable audience, much to the chagrin of a lot of animation fans, but those shows are still around for a reason, so...
Yeah, or even bringing back series that have not gotten syndication for a long, long time, like I grew up with, but would work for kids. I mean, I believe Disney holds the rights to a lot of the Henson franchises, like Fraggle Rock, both animated and live action. I think they're the ones that hold the Muppet Babies license, and they've done nothing with it. So that would actually be a really cool thing to be able to bring a lot of this nostalgia to my child and be able to see if that works better. Because I've shown her a lot of the newer stuff, and she's just not into it.
Yeah.
Like I showed her the new CG Care Bears. She was scared of it. Don't ask me, people. She was scared of it.
That's adorable.
I showed her some of the movies, and she's like, I'm okay with this. But then you show her the CG Care Bears from the hub, and she's like, nope, not touching this.
Uncanny Care Bears.
I also can report that my daughter, not a brony. Not a My Little Pony fan. That scares her too.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to the CGI Care Bears, does that mean that you now need the help of the psychiatric Care Bear?
Yes. I need Darkheart, the therapist, to come down and work with my daughter and say, it's okay. The Care Bears, they're only in CG. They're not going to harm you.
The 2D ones, however.
What was that?
I love how you had to specify they're
That's
only in CG. It's just because it makes me want to say, but the 2D ones, however.
No, because you can't do the TV series because it's never gotten a DVD release. But again, this would be great for the streaming service. But I've shown her the movies, and the movies are animated, and she had no problem with those. But the CG ones made by the hub, oh yeah, she ain't touching that.
Yeah, I just gotta say though, if Darkheart were a therapist, it would just say, it's time to play a game of disappearing bears.
I know, right? I mean, this is the basic way to be able to explain this to you, Alex. I think you've seen it in the crib a couple of times. She has a little Braveheart lion. She loves lions. And so we found a little Braveheart lion, or somebody did, and it's in her crib. There was a solid 2 months. This was around the time I showed her the CG Care Bears, where we had to take that out of the crib. She was not having any of that. But the irony is that she also had a little cheer bear that my nieces had gotten her. She had no problem with that one. But the big Braveheart lion, yeah, she had an issue. I can't people. So yeah, getting back to the Disney streaming service. I guess to kind of wrap it up, now that Disney has announced this thing, are we interested in it and at least giving it a chance? Do we think it's a good or a bad idea for them as a whole? I think it's probably, I think it's going to hurt them to some extent because they won't get as much exposure. I think having all those Disney movies on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and everywhere was a great thing to be able to have. But the fact that they want to maintain their exclusivity, I can understand that. I think it's going to hurt them in the short run. In the long run, it's going to be helpful. Because at that point, if they start bringing back a lot of things that only they have the rights to and they don't want to print DVDs for it, then it's going to be helpful for them in the long run. Alex, where are you standing with the Disney streaming service?
Makes sense why Disney's doing it. Disney wants that brand control. They want that quality assurance that people will find their proper product, and especially for kids. So it's just one more fragment of the ever-growing streaming market, which is more money out of all our pockets. But hey, I guess if you want it, go get it. No big deal to me, I suppose.
Yeah. I have a feeling I'm going to be getting it because I'm interested in what the series will offer. But again, I really do think that Disney owns enough of the little Einsteins that it's going to get ripped off Netflix. And if I don't have it, I'm literally my daughter's worst enemy. I'm the scary guy now. Romney, your thoughts on the Disney streaming service?
Honestly, as for whether or not I would actually pay for it, I'm not as into Disney as I once was. Even as a kid, I wasn't really as heavily into it. Granted, there are some Disney films that are a part of my childhood that I remember fondly, films like Mulan and Hunchback, but that's not enough to get me to pay for a full-on service. And whether or not they're going to try to incorporate Disney XD or other like parts of their empire into this service remains to be seen. I can see from the perspective of parents wanting this kind of service, mainly because, again, my older brother, whenever my niece has come over and they pull up stuff on Netflix, he has to be very careful about what she looks for. He had to find the YouTube Kids app, make sure she's not stumbling across something she shouldn't be. And so I'm thinking, okay, I can see why Disney's doing it. They want that brand control. Parents would want that, and because they want that sense of security. And so honestly, given that a bunch of companies are trying to exert that brand control, it's not really a surprise that Disney is trying to basically get ahead of the curve. My concern is we may start seeing basically a return of the studio system as a result of this, where you have studios owning the means of production and now going back to owning the means of distribution. And I'm just thinking, does this mean we're going to be back in the studio system with the very hard to negotiate contracts now?
I mean, I can see where you're coming with that. I mean, we already do have Netflix originals, Amazon originals, Hulu originals. They could easily become, while replacing television as it stands right now, they could easily become the studio system all over again. If you work for this studio, you can't work for others, and I don't want to see that happen.
Well, yeah. Luckily, we have the guilds and the unions that are in place that probably won't let that sort of thing happen. I mean, that was the whole reason that there was a pending writer's strike, was to prevent that sort of thing from happening regarding the writing schedules. But one of those mild concern, not better to that, but, well, it's just a case of, well, this is the way the industry is going.
Yep. Okay, for a second there, I thought we lost you, but thankfully you were able to finish off your thought. My thought, obviously, is I'm going to be getting this anyway because, again, if they rip enough stuff out, then I've got to get it for my daughter, and I'll probably she'll be the one that uses it. But I'm also going to say, like, if I have to pay into this service, which I probably will, I'm going to look into it. I want to make the most out of it and see if, like, I can show some old nostalgic series that Disney has the property rights to my daughter and feel completely okay with that. Like if they give me the option to be able to show things like Muppet Babies, I believe it's Disney that owns the rights to that because they own Jim Henson Studios. So if they have that and that's the only way to get it, I mean, I want to show that to my daughter and I think that's something she would enjoy. So there you go. I think that pretty much covers our thoughts on it. And then the final story we have tonight is a little feud that has been happening since I want to say Monday or Tuesday was when the initial shot was fired. And I'm waiting for the lousy freaking story. Okay, there we go. Now it's actually loading. Pardon my dust, people. I'm getting back to it. So the story that we're talking about in particular is James Cameron versus Patty Jenkins. Now, people might be a little confused by that, but earlier in the week, James Cameron put out his opinion on Wonder Woman, which I want to get into this a little bit because when this whole thing happened, I had just barely seen that Wonder Woman had hit $404 million. It's probably one of the more successful DC Cinematic Universe movies out there, so good on it. But a little after, James Cameron put out his viewpoint on it, which is, to sum up his quotes, a step backwards and making her an objectified icon. Basically saying that Wonder Woman is placating to the old stereotypes of Hollywood. And saying that the only reason that you did this was to have hot girl in hot outfit and then pretend that she's a superhero kind of thing. I'm summing up horribly on that one. Cameron had a lot of other things to say on the matter. In fact, he made a comparison to some of the other characters that he's made. And
more specifically, Sarah Connor.
Yeah, Sarah Connor in particular, how she broke that mold. And saying that Wonder Woman has set things back. And then as of, I think, Thursday, either yesterday or today, Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, has fired back. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the full quote because it's pretty much speaks for itself. James Cameron's inability to understand what Wonder Woman is or stands for to women all over the world is unsurprising, as though is unsurprising.
There's a typo.
Yeah, there's a typo in there, and it's throwing me off. Though he is a great filmmaker, he is not a woman. Strong women are great. His praise of my film Monster and our portrayal of a strong yet damaged woman was so appreciated. But if women have to always be hard, tough, and troubled to be strong, and we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive and loving, then we haven't come very far, have we? I believe women can and should be everything just like male lead characters should be. There is no right and wrong kind of powerful woman, and the massive female audience who made the film a hit, made the film a hit can surely choose and judge their own icons or icons of progress. So like we said, Cameron made a lot of comparisons to Sarah Connor. Given the fact that he tried to break the mold of that stereotypical heroine character, and the way that he went was kind of how things go now, which is we got to darken and gritify it to be able to make it work. What Patty's basically saying is that while you did a good job, and nobody's denying that, eventually you have to go the lighthearted end and be able to make that work too. And I agree with Patty Jenkins on this one. In fact, Patty Jenkins has pretty much summed up my problem with a lot of the gritty anti-hero movies coming out these days, is that you do need to have that good, kind, sensible hero. And I mean, I said it in our Wonder Woman vlog, Alex, and you can attest to this. It was a breath of fresh air to see an upstanding, like, genuine hero from the get-go. Nothing about her changed. Well, I mean, the end kind of changed, but she still was the same, I'm going to save the day because that's what you do, compared to the dark and gritty characters that we get most of the time now in modern cinema. So I'm more on Jenkins' angle. I think Cameron brings up some good points, but I think that they actually get outweighed by the other positives that the character does. Maybe I'm on my own on this one, but Romney and Alex, your thoughts on the comments that are being made between Steve, I was about to say Steve Cameron, James Cameron, and Patty Jenkins.
I'm still not sure Cameron's overall problems with it is, I guess maybe he thinks Wonder Woman's kind of objectified because
Wonder Woman is an objectified icon.
Yeah, I don't really follow with Cameron on this one. I mean, to his fairness, I mean, you could probably call Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley pretty attractive women, but I guess at the end of the day, the attractiveness is in the eye of the beholder. I wouldn't call them, homely or ugly or anything, but they're probably not drop dead vixens like Wonder Woman, but that is kind of part of Wonder Woman's character, right? Is
Would
that
you
she's
like
kind
me
of a
to read the Cameron quotes that we have from the original story when he fired?
Yeah, go ahead.
So all of the self-congratulatory back-patting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided. And this was a quote to The Guardian that he did.
Mm-hmm.
She's an objectified icon, and it's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing. I'm not saying I didn't like the movie, but to me, it's a step backwards. And then he actually goes in. So here's the Sarah Connor stuff that we're talking about. Sarah Connor was not a beauty icon. She was strong. She was troubled. She was a terrible mother. And she earned the respect of the audience through pure grit. And to me, the benefit of characters like Sarah is, that's parentheses, but is so obvious. I mean, half of the audience is female. Okay. But then you're immediately assuming that that half of the audience is only going to get into gritty characters. I'm taking that quote into context here.
I don't think it's about like gritty. It's not like I'm emo Batman kind of gritty, right? Yeah. I think it's more like the way I'm kind of interpreting Cameron's quotes here is he might think that Wonder Woman's it's not so much of a looks or pretty issue. Maybe that's a part of it, but it's more like maybe Wonder Woman's a little too perfect and a little too, holy, angelic, kind of a little too messiah-ic, I suppose.
But in that case,
this is the way I'm kind of reading it, where it's like Wonder Woman kind of just was perfect compared to Sarah Connor, who has had a lot of moral character flaws, but this is the way I'm reading it, where Sarah Connor has a lot more like character flaws to her, but Wonder Woman's a little too perfect.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's about looks so much as it's more of just the execution of the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Romney.
Well, to that, I pretty much have to say it's very much an apples and oranges comparison when you look at Sarah Connor and Wonder Woman, just considering just the motivation and the backgrounds of the respective characters. I mean, yeah, Wonder Woman may seem a bit too idealized, almost a bit like an angel, but when you consider the context of the story where, yeah, she's lived on Themyscira pretty much most of her life, and the story is basically about her discovering the world of man. But unlike other iterations where people would think, oh, it's because she's trying to like return man where he came from or this, that, and the other, the whole reason she goes on the journey, and it speaks to her fundamental character trait, is her sense of compassion. What's her driving goal? To find Ares, stop him so that the war will end. And because she doesn't want to see the world suffer. And that's the defining trait that carries her through the entire thing. It's the one consistent trait that Wonder Woman has as a character, whereas Sarah Connor is the reluctant warrior. She was just basically a waitress thrust into a very messed up situation by fate and having to adapt. Two different types of characters that you can't really compare because they're two different types of heroes for two different types of stories. Whereas Wonder Woman is very much the idealist trying to basically make sense of a not so ideal world. Sarah Connor is basically the reluctant warrior. And I can see where Cameron's coming from, where Wonder Woman seems a bit too idealized, a bit too much like, you know, every superhero in the existence of the genre. But then again, that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
And I'm with Jenkins as well, where not every female character needs to be gritty, rough. I mean, Amy Madigan gave a pretty good explanation of this when she talked about the role she played in Streets of Fire that was originally written for a man, where, yeah, you can have a female character who can fight, who can hold her own in a fight, and you don't have to give her some motivation of, oh, she grew up in a rough neighborhood, or, oh, her husband died. It could be a case of, no, you can just have a character who knows how to fight, who knows how to take care of herself, and that's it. Because there are people like that in real life. So you don't have to give Wonder Woman some sort of tragic backstory that compels her to be a hero. It's just that she feels it's the right thing to do. She's more like Superman than the Superman we've got is, where it's a case of, hey, I'm motivated to help the world and try to make it a better place because, well, I don't like the fact that it's going down the crapper, so I'm actually going to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of this is like the moment that everybody talks about from Wonder Woman, and even like when I during my vacation, I was actually able to take my wife to go see Wonder Woman. She hadn't seen it yet. And the moment that everybody talks about that basically makes her better than Superman is that iconic moment where she steps out of the foxhole, she's out onto the open battlefield, and she's immediately getting into the fight that everybody's afraid of. And I've actually seen a lot of people make a valid argument. This is what we wanted to see Superman do. This is what we wanted to see Superman do, to stand up for what's right and just walk out there. And yes, he's freaking immortal. All the bullets would bounce off of him, and that would be a freak out of epic proportions. But that's kind of what we wanted to see happen, is that he was doing the right thing for the right reasons, which is the Superman that a lot of us know. So I like the comparison that you just made there, because others have been making that. And it's entirely true. The Batman v Superman that we got it's so different from the Wonder Woman that we have in this film. So, and after hearing your viewpoint on the matter, I could kind of see James Cameron's perspective, but I'm still siding with Patty Jenkins. I think that we can do character archetypes that aren't necessarily dark and gritty. I think you can make them all work, and you can open and expand them far more than a lot of writers out in Hollywood are willing to attempt to do right now. So at that point, I mean, I just like the fact that this discussion is actually being had. If that makes any sense. I don't care who necessarily are the participants. The fact that we're actually having that discussion of, is dark and gritty the way to go, or can we actually have wholesome good guys in that arsenal? And I want that discussion had.
Yeah, and it also opens up a lot of avenues writing-wise, because you can have the idea of, okay, maybe have the grittier female character play off the more idealized. I mean, a good example of this is from Xena, Warrior Princess, where you have Xena, who basically is a warrior who's known fighting all her life and is very much more cynical, but she's trying to improve herself. And then you have Gabrielle, who is the idealist, who's basically kind of the moral compass, the shining light that kind of guides Xena through it. And it can create some interesting dynamics. I mean, for example, if this was like down the road, I would pay to see how Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman would interact off of a character like Kathy Kane, aka Batwoman. That's an exchange I would want to see, is seeing two female characters from radically different backgrounds with radically different ideologies coming together for a common goal and kind of having that discussion of, okay, well, what's the right way to do what we need to do?
Well, and in the movie itself, you already got that interaction because they actually, this is why I love the writing of Wonder Woman. They made Steve Trevor into that. They made him the gritty hero. They made him the gritty anti-hero who's seen shit, pardon my French, but he's seen crap and he doesn't think life will ever be the same kind of thing. He's seen this stuff, and then you have Wonder Woman bounce off of him. And it's a great dichotomy to be able to do because you actually have like what's right, what's wrong, and you get to see the gray areas as well. Another example that I got during my vacation was, and I can't even believe I'm going to say good words about this, was Zootopia. The interaction between the two main characters, where the Fox is a little bit more of a gritty guy, and Officer Hops, at least from what I was able to see in the doctor's office, I haven't seen this movie all the way. She's more of the I want to be a good person for good sake, and I want to help people because that's the right thing to do.
It's very much small town girl meets the city slicker. It's very much she came from the small town, has the sense of small town values. And then you've got Nick, who basically has been crapped on his whole life because of who he is. The metaphor is a bit heavy-handed, but again, Zootopia makes it work. I mean, it's the same thing that you see in things like Watchmen, where Hollis Mason, when he went to become the original Night Owl, he grew up in a small town. He basically was kind of the Clark Kent, grew up in a small town, wanted to become a police officer. When he got to the big city to become a police officer, things were a lot more gray, and then he decided, okay, I'll become a vigilante to try to, instill these values that I believe in because the current system doesn't work. And so, again, it opens up those types of possibilities. We have these types of discussions with male characters. We should be allowing fiction to have that with female characters as well.
Yep. I think this is going to be an awesome thing for character design, period. So let's continue the discussion, honestly. That's my viewpoint on the matter. Final thoughts before we wrap things up. Alex, you've been kind of quiet on this one. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good to open up the discussion here and have two creative minds essentially kind of go at it and kind of publicly give these kind of ideas. I definitely can see some of Jenkins' statements here. Let me pull up the quote again. Specifically, okay. I read it and I'm trying to find the particular line I want. Okay, but if women always have to be hard, tough, troubled to be strong, we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she's attractive and loving. We've come very far, have we? So yeah, I can definitely agree with Jenkins on that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. So thank you guys so much for being patient with us because we did take that little bit of a vacation for 2 weeks, and we're glad to be back. I promised that was going to be the end or anything like that. That literal week, because I was taking a vacation, it destroyed the podcast because they couldn't find a third person to step in. Too many other people had other stuff going on. So thank you guys so much for your support and for your patience as we went through that difficult time. But and especially thanks so much to all the people who sent out the well wishes to me. I really do appreciate it because I was probably not in the best of shape when I took my vacation, and now I'm feeling a whole lot better. So thank you. But let's go and wrap things up for the evening. If people want to get a hold of us and ask us the opinions that we've had or want to go in a little more detail on the opinions that we've expressed in this podcast, Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do they do that with you? And then also, how do they get in contact with the other content that you provide on YouTube?
Well, of course, you can follow me here on YouTube. Shadow Blazer 3000 is my channel. And if you always want to be up to date on when I make new content, then follow me on Twitter at AlexJShort.
All right. Stephen Romney, how do people get access to the content that you provide, as well as if they want to have that discussion with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find me on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on VidMe at vid.me/StudioGhost. The channel on that website is kind of barren, but that'll change fairly quickly. And I am also on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And I'm also on Twitter at RomneyReviews. And for this week's Romney's recommendation, it's a fitness game that it's actually been very instrumental in me hitting my weight loss goals. Now, granted, I still exercise beyond this fitness game, but if it's a day where I don't have my clothes that I can go to the gym, or I just don't have time, like, for example, when we have the show, and I just need to get a workout in while still having time to look over the agenda, the recommendation this week is Your Shape Fitness Evolved 2013 for the Wii U. Now, granted, like a lot of other fitness games, it does have its problems, but where it succeeds is, one, it doesn't rely on the sensor bar to track movement. It's strictly holding the Wiimote in your hand, using the Wii Motion Plus, and the exercises, if you actually do them right and don't try to cheat, will help you get a workout. You will break a sweat if you're actually putting in the due diligence. And unlike other fitness games that try to encourage you to do it every single day, this game is just like, okay, we just track your calories overall. You can unlock new exercises when you earn enough coins. And it's genuinely been a good help in trying to get that bit of exercise, especially on days where I just can't find the time to go to the gym. Sometimes I'll just boot it up. I mean, my professional tip, if you're going to do the Fitness Evolved game seriously, get yourself a pair of weighted gloves, wear them on your hands as you're doing the workout with the Wiimote. Make it a lot more intense. You burn more calories. You'll get more of a sweat because you're giving yourself that resistance that you need for certain movements. But it's also fun, like legitimately fun, especially the dancing mini games, because it's similar to games like Just Dance, because it's also made by Ubisoft. But if you're looking for a martial arts style class, they have that. If you want to learn how to crump or do any sort of hip hop dancing, they have that too. They have a variety of options depending on what workout goal you're trying to hit. For me, it's been weight loss, and it's been a major help. Even if you don't have the weighted gloves, it's something I highly recommend. And so that's this week's Romney's recommendation, is Your Shape Fitness Evolved 2013 for the Wii U.
All right. And then if people want to get a hold of me for my opinions and also for my content, you're already on my channel. So go to youtube.com/Drac2326. You can check out all of the content that I provide there, including the 3 podcasts that I do, as well as the Let's Play content, the reviews, the vlogs, which all of that is back in full swing this week. I had a little bit of PC difficulties, but we're back in full swing with a little bit of schedule changes here and there. So there you go. You guys can check that out. If you want to contact me directly, though, you can follow me on Twitter at Drac2326, and I'm working very hard to respond to you guys as quickly as I'm able to. But since I'm coming back from vacation, I'm a little overwhelmed, at least for this first week. So I'm just going to warn you guys in advance. If you want to get a hold of the show directly, the first place that I would ask that you go is go to our RSS feed, which is Podomatic. So it's geekyweek.podomatic.com. That's where the episodes are uploaded. I know that it's a little behind, but some of the schedule changes that are actually happening are going to be going in favor of that. So, because I want to be able to get you guys the episodes, but you guys can check out some of the other episodes that we have recorded this year that are just as awesome as tonight. You can also follow us on social media to get updates on when we're going live and the stuff we might be talking about by either looking for Geek News Reviews and Opinions on Facebook and liking the page, or you can follow us on Twitter at GeekyNRO. And both of those social networking outlets do just that. They let you know what we're going to be talking about and when we're going to be going live. And then we'll also try and get some discussions and polls into the Twitter as well. Then also, if you guys want to support the podcast by submitting your own stories, submitting your own feedback, you can also do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And we have used some listener stories tonight, and we do use them as often as we are able to. So you guys can go ahead and leave those at the email, and we'll get to them as quickly as we're able to. But make sure that you've got all the information, because we've got to do a little bit of homework before we can use it. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for being patient and be coming in and rejoining us as we come back from vacation. Thank you guys so much for all of the support that you guys provide to our individual channels as well as to Geek News. And of course, we'll see you guys next week for even more Geek News, reviews, and opinions.